Dougie.
Sam.
Arsenal's attack has fallen off a cliff at just the wrong time. Will it cost them in their chase for trophies? And more importantly, why has it happened?
I'm not sure they've got the quality in the attack. I can't see a team win the Champions League who don't have like a star in the front four. They haven't got one.
There was never a spell in the game where, other than Eze when he came on, a player was getting their foot on the ball, where they were creating these waves of attacks.
Well, I think once they're very predictable.
Talking about Arsenal's attack, this is the worst it's been in ages.
If they play like that the rest of the season, they ain't winning nothing.
What you can give them a load of grief for, though, is in the final third. There is no getting away from it. They have hit a bit of a rough patch, and the goals have begun to dry up.
Unfortunately, Tottenham going forward, they can't score goals right now.
Yes, hello everybody and welcome to another episode of The Truth. I am your host, Sam Tighe. Joining me is Dougie Critchley. Hello.
Hello, Sam. Yeah, great to be here. Excited for this topic. And you are back from the Netherlands.
I'm knackered.
Great to have you on UK shores.
Yeah, I'm knackered. I'm absolutely exhausted. 2 days in the Netherlands. I went over for assignment to watch NEC Nijmegen against Feyenoord. Just about every Dutch person I spoke to while I was there assumed that I was there to cover Raheem Sterling, who's on loan at Feyenoord. How wrong they were. I was there for the story of NEC, and by the time this podcast goes out, my feature should be live on ESPN, so please do take a look. I ventured into a forest to watch a football game. It was great fun. Raheem Sterling did not play. He does not make it onto the pitch for Feyenoord. It's
That's kind of nuts, isn't it?
Very sad situation for him, but he was not the focus. Over in the corner, I believe he still can't talk. Couldn't talk, didn't show up.
Yeah.
Couldn't talk.
It's like an April ban.
And only half of that was accurate. And because he doesn't have a microphone, he can't contest otherwise. So I'll save the evil intro for yet another week, which is good. Saves me some time. But it strikes me that we are three intrepid travellers because Jack went to Anfield. I went to the Netherlands. Did you go to Palace?
I did. Yeah, I went to Palace last Thursday to watch them kind of quite comprehensively beat Fiorentina in the end. It was actually a really good display. They won 3-0. And then I was at Stamford Bridge on Sunday for Man City sort of annihilating in the end Chelsea and really putting a cat amongst the pigeons in this title race.
So by the time this podcast goes out, second leg of those Europa games will have happened. So presumably Palace have not pooped the bed.
Father-in-law Greg would be gutted.
That is a commanding lead. Villa sitting on a 3-1 away win from Bologna, and I'll be at Villa Park for the home game.
Massive.
So no shenanigans, please.
No.
And you guys will know if I'm happy or sad.
And then it's the Truth Derby this Sunday as well.
Which you will need to lose.
Yes.
You will.
I keep on thinking that's going to happen, but
you will be required to lose that game. Thank you very much. Thank you for your help. Right. Let's talk about Arsenal's attack, or maybe the lack of attack. It would be the more useful phrase at this point. Take it away, Dougie. Set the scene for us.
Yeah, so Arsenal, I think, are actually struggling at both ends, but the narrative is more suited to kind of talk about the attack because maybe this is a few seasons going and there's a lot of criticism right now about Mikel Arteta and his philosophy and his tactics, etc. And a lot of that is linked to the lack of attacking impetus that they have in their side right now. And we are filming this prior to the second leg against Sporting CP.
Oh, yes, we must timestamp it in case we look silly.
We really must. Maybe they've scored a lot of goals against them, but either way, I still think it's a relevant topic because the last time, as they go into that game against Sporting CP, that Arsenal scored more than 2 goals in a game was the 22nd of February, which is that 4-1 win against Spurs. And to be honest, everyone beats Spurs. Man City, since then, have scored 2 or more goals on 3 occasions. And Arsenal, going into this second leg, have lost 3 of their last 4 games. Now, prior to this run, they'd only lost 3 of 48 games this season, now lost 3 of their last 4. So going into this weekend, it's the big one. 4:30 Sunday, they are 6 points ahead of Man City, but they have played a game more. And Man City will play twice before they play Newcastle the weekend after this. So there is a chance that if Man City beat them at the Etihad and beat Burnley in midweek next week, that they could be top of the table by the time Arsenal take on Newcastle.
Because of goal difference.
And
which has very recently started to shift, right? So Arsenal sitting on plus 38, City sitting on plus 35. But up until this past weekend, Arsenal were the top scoring team in the league. That is now not the case. City have eked over by 1, so courtesy of that 3-0 win. So things are starting to change a little bit here. And if City go ahead and beat Arsenal by any margin, that's obviously, that works in their column. And then presumably they beat Burnley by more than one.
You'd have thought so.
It's genuinely conceivable that this looks quite different a week from now, which is quite absurd. Or actually, it's unbelievable that it's happened and could happen so fast, and the way these fixtures kind of fall like that, and the fact that City have got Burnley as well. Like, it just feels like such an obvious victory. But look, I guess what I just said there, up until this weekend, Arsenal were the top scoring team in the league. So clearly, for the majority of the season, they haven't had too much trouble scoring loads of goals. So this is a very recent thing. This is a case of the last month or so, right? We're not suggesting that they've been ineffective in front of goal all year, are we?
No, but I think they've kind of left the door ajar. I think most people would suggest that Arsenal play fairly controlled, physical, defensive dominated football. I think that's fair to say. It's not really a criticism. There's many ways to win a league, and they've gone down the more sort of Mourinho route, and they look like, up until a few weeks ago, that they were on track to do so with one of the most impressive defensive performances that we've seen in recent years in the Premier League. But they are on track to score 73 league goals this season at current rates. That would be the 7th lowest total in Premier League history, and the lowest is Man United in 92-93 with 67. Which is only 6 goals fewer than Arsenal are on track to score this season. And look, that might change by the end of the year. But Arsenal have definitely not had an attacking cohesion to them this year. Last year, their drop-off was blamed on injuries and red cards. This year, they prepared for it by having an amazing summer of recruitment in terms of filling in squad depth. Maybe they didn't add enough sort of first-team starter quality, and there was that big debate in the summer about whether they should sign a lights out left winger, and eventually they went for Eberechi Eze, etc. There's various different factors here, but as it stands right now, they have the 3rd best attack by XG created, but they're only 6th for open play XG created, and this has been a fairly long-term issue, definitely over the last few seasons, from that sort of 23-24 peak where they scored 91 league goals. Their goal return has been dropping season on season. I mean, Sam, from a sort of tactical perspective, have you been surprised that they have allowed this to happen, or did you potentially see this coming with the amount of football they had to play? Is there something fundamentally wrong with Arteta's style?
Well, I mean, look, Arteta has been the manager for all of the seasons we've been talking about there. So going back to 23-24 and into 22 and 23 as well, obviously quite high scoring. They do look a vastly different football side to 3 years ago. And so Arteta has made his choice in terms of where he wants to take this team. He's responding to the landscape and the tactical meta of the Premier League in the same way that Guardiola is, right? In the same way that most of these teams have decided against some elements of technical play, and therefore I think attacking and creative play, in favour of the more physical, because we've been talking all season about set pieces and how games are decided by duels and physicality and all that kind of stuff. And like Arteta has leaned into that just as much as anybody, if not more. But as you were talking there about the highs of 2023-24, so it was 91 goals. Yeah. Was Zinchenko in the team then?
Zinchenko was.
So I need scratching the memory banks a little bit there, just to place exactly the transition on Arsenal. But I mean, the Arsenal team that had Zinchenko inverting from left back into midfield was a seriously different team to the one we see before us. I don't just mean in personnel. I mean in terms of the way it's built, the size of the players, but also the expectations as well, right? So everything feels different there. But you look at this Arsenal team, can you believe that only 2 years ago Zinchenko was at the heart of it? Of course, 2 years ago, Odegaard was actually the heartbeat of the team, and we haven't seen very much of him this season, which goes part way to explaining a lot of those problems. But I don't think Arteta is just this naturally defensive coach. I think he's responded to the tactical landscape and he's tried to navigate it as best possible. I do think there's a conversation to always be had about Arsenal's mentality in these moments. I also think there's a fair amount of injuries happening right now, and all of this combines. And then I want to ask you this, Dougie. You mentioned the last time they scored a hatful of goals was 22nd of February, Spurs. They beat them 4-1. So then you go forward about a month, 17th of March. That's where they beat Bayer Leverkusen pretty convincingly at the Emirates, 2-0. That's the second leg of the tie. That's done. That was only a month ago, right? That was a month ago, and I think Arsenal looked absolutely fine in attack on that night. And there wasn't much panicking then. But post-international break, you've got a cup final where arguably the difference was Kepa.
Yep.
Right? It was the goalkeepers were the difference. They both played their reserve goalkeepers. One of the goalkeepers is a lot better than the other one, right? James Trafford is a lot better than Kepa, and Kepa pretty much turned that tie, I would say. Southampton in the FA Cup is next. It's a strange game, and it's going to happen to anybody. And Arsenal were well on top in that first half in terms of creating chances too. Sporting away from home, always going to be difficult, and we've praised them for getting the job done. Sporting had won, it's a shame Jack can't speak, but like 20-odd games in a row at home.
20, literally.
Okay, there you go. Jack doesn't need to speak. I can just make up and guess numbers and I get them right. 20 games at home. This was never going to be easy, and they got the job done, and it was a wonderful goal to finish it at the end. I would say there's actually quite a lot of mitigating factors happening here in quite a lot of these. So I can play devil's advocate there a little bit and say, well, hang on, how concerned should we be? And then Bournemouth. Oh dear.
Yeah, Bournemouth was really flat, really, really flat. I think that open play XG was 0.19 at home when you're going for the title. And look, Bournemouth have been on an amazing run recently.
Amazing amount of draws.
Yeah, a lot of draws thrown in there as well. And they've got, attacking players that have caused so many teams damage this season. Krupi, Ryan's been brilliant since arriving from January. I think Alex Scott probably won't make the World Cup squad, but he's going to be damn near close and deserves to be in the conversation.
And he was brilliant that day too.
But I do agree with you. It does feel like negativity and poor results in cup competitions seeping into the mentality of rival fans and maybe even a little bit their own players. Because if you look at the raw numbers in the Champions League, they've lost one of their last 23 matches in the Champions League, which was a 1-0 defeat against PSG in the semi-finals last year. That is a phenomenal record. And look, I don't want to speak too much about the Champions League before they play Sporting CP, but they are the only unbeaten side in the competition this year. They've won 10 of 11 games. That's pretty impressive. And if you look in the Premier League, I know that there is a Carabao Cup final defeat thrown in there. There's an FA Cup embarrassment to Southampton in there as well. But across the last 5 league games, they've picked up 12 points. City have picked up 11. Across the last 10 league games, they picked up 20. City have picked up 21. So not a big gap over 10 games.
Not at all.
Across 20 games, Arsenal 41, Man City 42. So there just is no reason to, and pardon my French, shit the bed in this scenario.
Poop the bed.
Poop the bed. That is much, we're PG on this channel. There is just no reason to completely panic right now. I know they're not playing particularly well, but this is still very much in their hands. They are 2 games away from setting up a pretty special season. If they avoid defeat against Sporting CP, they will be through to the semi-finals of the Champions League for the first time in consecutive seasons ever in their history. And if they avoid defeat at the Etihad, I find it very difficult to imagine them, Arsenal, who have this reputation and who have so much negativity and nerves in their squad and around them right now, I find it very difficult to imagine them throwing it away as well. So I would just say calm for now.
Okay. But you did suggest a podcast titled "What the Hell Has Happened to Arsenal's Attack?" So
there's
calm, and then there's
you can play it both sides for sure. And I think there are factors to discuss for sure. I think if you go back to 23-24, it wasn't just Zinchenko then.
No, yeah. So I didn't mean to put it all on Alexander there, but it was the big tactical shift that I remember from that team and how it's so not there anymore.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at their right-hand side as well, that White Odegaard-Saka relationship, I think it was probably the strongest in the Premier League right then in terms of one right-hand side or one side of anyone's attack. They worked seamlessly together. Odegaard has lost a lot of confidence, I think it's fair to say, and lost a lot of rhythm from consistent injuries as well. And if you look at that 23-24 season, 6 players started 35 league games. Saliba, Rice, Odegaard, Gabriel, White, Saka. That is an amazing amount of chemistry in a side. And because of expanded Champions League and because of better depth and more players to fit in and give minutes to, they have lacked a little bit of rhythm and cohesion this year as well. Up until a few weeks ago, they were the top scorers in the Premier League. I don't think it was always thrilling to watch. But you look into the key numbers of a Martin Odegaard, for example, his expected assists is actually very similar to where he's been at for the last few seasons. But his expected goals per 90 has dropped to 0.09. That is down from a low of 0.22 over the last 3 seasons. That's the same as Sven Botman, Nordi Mukiele and Malu Gusto for Odegaard the goal threat has just completely dissipated from his game as he's missed 38 games with injury since the start of last season. You've also got to look at the star boy slightly. And look, Saka is more responsible than anyone for getting Arsenal into the position to attract the players that they have over the last few seasons and to be able to build this side that can potentially go to Champions League semi-finals and potentially challenge for titles. But Saka has not been at his best this year. There are a number of top Premier League players that haven't been at their best this year. Salah, Palmer, Foden, the list goes on. But he has looked slightly ineffective, I would say, at times, which is rare to say because it felt like even when Saka wasn't getting big numbers, he was always the main threat. Whereas actually, I think from a neutral perspective, Noni Madueke has often carried more threat than Saka this season. And I think Saka has been far too ineffective in far too many games. And his shots from inside the box have gone from 2.6 to 2. That I just don't think there's the same threat anymore. And you've also got to look at the players they've recruited in attack as well, Sam. And Victor Gyökeres, I don't think it's been far from a disaster. I think he's now on 18 goals in all competitions.
Yeah.
But he's definitely not pulled up any trees in the biggest Premier League games.
Okay, yeah, Gyökeres. I mean, goal scoring numbers are funny, aren't they? They can make you believe a lot of different things because 18 goals and counting for Victor Gyökeres sounds fine. It sounds absolutely fine. But like anybody that's been watching Arsenal all season cannot really say that Victor Gyökeres has been a particularly successful signing so far. I suppose in the sense that he's been almost always available and able to lead the line and be physical. He has played a part in the best team. So you can't say he's been a complete failure. But good grief. I mean, the vast majority of this guy's goals have come against teams in the bottom six, newly promoted sides, or from the spot. There's been very little to go on from Gyökeres against any of the top teams. Off the top of my head, I can remember semi-final Carabao Cup against Chelsea, where he was able to get on the score sheet. But apart from that, I'm really struggling to think of anyone like really decent that he's really put to the sword. I have been really unimpressed with his first touch. Really unimpressed. Did not see it coming. Starting to wonder if it was always there and I've just missed it. And it's part of my process where I didn't spot it to start with. But I feel like maybe just, I don't know, in the Premier League, it's half a step quicker, half a second quicker, maybe even a second quicker at this point. And the translation isn't so simple. But Gyökeres has been disappointing. And I think Arteta has obviously been behind him the whole way and talked him up and consistently played him and tried to get him to replicate the Sweden form, the Sporting form. But it is telling to me that now that Kai Havertz is fit, he's trying to bring Kai Havertz into the setup quite considerably, either as a striker or the facilitator as the 10. And I don't think Havertz is particularly sharp and hugely fit right now. And I'm not blaming him for that because he missed in the end it was like a year almost, like 10 to 12 months. It was a long time. It's hard to regain that rhythm and that sharpness. He's had a couple of moments, but other than that, there have been times where he's also looked just really undercooked. But there's a reason he's playing, and it's because everyone else in that team is out of form or injured. And I do think need to give serious consideration to the fact that Saka, hasn't hit the levels, but has also been more injured this season than he ever has been on multiple occasions. And he's been suspiciously missing from this run of form. He played the Carabao Cup final, and we haven't seen him since.
Don't think so.
Odegaard has basically been unfit all season, available for 30% of their minutes or something like that. And I think even when he does play sometimes, you're like, are you fit? I'm not sure you're fit. And he comes off after 60 minutes and a half every now and then. The rest of them, Trossard, I think, run into the ground. Martinelli, continually disappointing. Madueke's had an injury. And you know what? I think we expand it beyond the forwards as well because Marino getting injured is really bad news. Not really for the midfield, but just if they were really struggling for that goal, and if Gyökeres wasn't firing, he wouldn't be putting Havertz on. He'd be putting Marino up front. And you know what? Marino would probably have scored 5 goals. He was really good as a striker. Really, weirdly good as a striker, as an actual number 9. So Marino missing the rest of the season, that becomes a problem. And even go as far as to say someone like Jurrien Timber, who, up until his injury, I think was having probably the best season of any right back in the league.
Yep.
And he hasn't been injured that long, so I'd probably still put him in my team of the season at right back. He spends most of his time in the opposition box. So you're talking about the sort of White Saka Odegaard connections. Well, Timber was working those connections with Saka too. and it was going really well. He was having a huge impact on games. So I know I don't like conversations where we end up coming to, well, they're all just really injured. But we can't ignore that. Like, that is a big part of it, and it is a long, horrible old season. And when you play like Arsenal, indexing on that physicality, and then you do get the injuries, yeah, it can be a little bit tough to come back from. But before I throw to you, I just want to talk about this Bournemouth game quickly again, because I'm going to present stats to you. You know, I'm always impressed with your stats. I always say that. And I always say that I'm looking for my own stats. Well, I didn't find any good stats this time that can beat you, so I decided to present a statistic in a way that you would possibly never dream of presenting. I don't think anyone has ever presented a stat in this format
gets me
before.
going.
Are you ready? So, around the 35th minute of this Arsenal game, two things happened within a minute of each other. The first was Victor Gyökeres smashed home a penalty. Mm-hmm. The second was British Airways announcing over the public address system that the plane I was about to board to Amsterdam was broken and the mechanics couldn't fix it. Okay? Guess what happened next? As in, what happened next? What happened the soonest? British Airways found a whole different plane for me to get on, or Arsenal had another shot on target.
The plane.
Was
this Gatwick as well?
No, it was Heathrow.
They do have options there, but still, that is surprising.
Good God, yeah. I mean, that, and so...
Wow.
I was just watching the game on my phone at the gate. I was told to leave the gate. We don't have a plane for you right now. Just go away. They said, just please go away. Anyway, spent some time away from the gate, got back to a different gate. They managed to find us another plane. Arsenal still hadn't had another shot on target. They did end up piling on a bit of pressure towards the end of that game.
Yeah.
They did, but obviously in the end they lost. And that is, at the time you need it the most, at the business end of the season, how many cliches I can fit into this, I don't know. It is just the most anemic looking attack. And I'm willing to make a lot of caveats for like the cup competitions, the randomness, the goalkeepers in the Carabao Cup, the injuries or whatever. But at the same time, like, you're home to Bournemouth and the pressure's on. And while they are out of form or they are injured, it should be better. And they look scared.
Yeah.
Like, the way they played the ball out from the back, they look scared. They look really frigid and timid. And it really hurts Gabriel when the team isn't functioning because he's not the best passer. And Saliba's not the crazy progressive passer either. They need the midfield to be functioning properly. I don't see it. And I see it right from the back. I see this timidity and it bothers everybody on the pitch.
Yeah, for sure. I think that ties into talking about progressive passes and ease of progression. It wasn't actually 23-24 because he left the season before, but Granit Xhaka was an absolutely insanely good passer from deep and through the lines. And he's proving it at Sunderland this season. But honestly, for even in Arsenal's lows during his difficulties at Arsenal, he was always amongst the top 5-6 in Europe for passes into the final third, progressive passes. It's an absence. And the player that they brought in to solve that issue this season, who started exceptionally well, Martin Zubimendi, I don't think he's been very good for the last 6-7 weeks. And look, I still think he's probably got to be in the discussion for one of the signings of the season. But if you go missing for the business end, and a lot of that, as you already mentioned, is down to the fact he hasn't really been rotated because other players have been missing with injury, Mikel Merino most notably, and Norgard hasn't really been trusted to play in the bigger games, which is potentially something that Arteta should have looked at as well. And there is a phenomenal young player in Miles Lewis-Skelly that's had something like 300 league minutes this year and now might leave the club. I think some of it has to be down to a little bit of a lack of rotation at points from Arteta in terms of Zubimendi and Rice.
I'm with you. And I think Timber got injured because he was like massively overplayed, as just a one example.
And for the first time in his career that I can really remember, maybe since his early days at Brighton, Ben White is making mistakes, and Ben White never used to make mistakes, and he's making them on a pretty much weekly basis now, and it's costing the side. And you've got a striker up front in Victor Gyökeres, who, yes, 12 Premier League goals, but none have come against the top 7. 7 have come against sides ranked 15th or below, and 3 of which have been penalties.
And 900 of which were against Leeds.
Yeah. And look, he's in great form, personal form at the moment for club and country, but I still just don't have any belief that he can impact a game against Man City. And look, you can clip this up. Maybe it'll look incredibly stupid on Sunday, but I would be amazed if Gyökeres is the deciding factor of this game at the Etihad. I just can't see it coming as it stands. Martinelli continues to kind of baffle and confuse on a weekly basis. Like some of his general play has been a lot better than normal. Like the assist for Havertz in that game against Sporting was pretty magnificent, really. But that threat behind that used to get to the byline and create danger 4 or 5 times a game just doesn't really exist anymore either. So there are a number of different factors there. But having said all that, maybe it's just I kind of have found myself in mid-April refusing to believe that Spurs could go down and Arsenal could bottle the league. But actually, maybe all the evidence is pointing to the fact that both of those things are now more than likely.
How many weeks ago did I tell you that Spurs are going down?
I still thought it was going to be Forest, but I think that was heart over head.
Yeah, that was over a month ago. I informed you of the news that Spurs...
Yeah, I mean, we all had a different guess in that. And we all said it could be anyone.
Nope.
Did not know. We can roll the tape.
Jack, anyone? Yeah, see?
You said, I think Spurs are going down, but I'm not 100% sure. We all had the same argument.
It's not true. I picked Spurs.
You did not?
Anyway, that's not the point. The be-all and end-all of Victor Gyökeres and whether or not he's a success or failure is not goals against Man City. You've got to remember, like...
I think you want both.
Of course you want both, but like the top strikers in the league have always tended to get more goals against the fodder than the top teams in those clashes, which is it's just the way it is. Even Drogba and Suarez were like that. That said, obviously, I've been disappointed in him.
I think but you can ask for a couple of goals against the top 7.
It would be nice to get 1 or 2.
Yeah, come on. I don't think that's too much to ask. 100%. Especially when you've if you sign Gyökeres, you don't sign Benjamin Sesko, you don't sign Ekitike. Like, there's ramifications of who you eventually choose to sign.
Very true. Well, look, they have been linked to Julian Alvarez recently, so it hasn't stopped them from potentially signing another one.
Let's see. I'd be surprised.
But we will have to see. I mean, look, I think injuries have a big part to play in this. I don't love it when I get to the end of a conversation like this and I just have to blame injuries. But like more often than not with this sort of thing, it is a big factor. That said, you raised a fair point. Arteta, does his lack of rotation in some places does that instigate some injuries that could have been avoided? And isn't that what a big squad is for? And that's not the case with everybody, but I do feel like it has been the case on a couple of occasions. And the fact that when you said Christian Norgard, I went, oh yeah, I remember him. This really is quite indicative of something, which is a big shame. And I'm firmly of the belief that Timber was driven into the ground. Maybe because what we're seeing from Ben White right now is what Arteta knew was coming and he didn't want to play him. But then it's a catch-22, isn't it? How does Ben White get into form if he never gets to play and then he has to play every 3 days?
And you're playing him in April rather than in November.
It's one of those situations. So it's difficult. I mean, look, the inevitable question at the end of this topic, as I'm sure you expected, is do you think that Arsenal will still win the title?
I do, actually. If I'm I don't know. Oh, gosh, it's very difficult. I do at the moment. I do. I kind of flip-flop on this on a daily basis at the moment. I was, as I said at the start of the podcast... This is
the life of a man who spends his time on the news on Sky. Yeah. So he ends up talking himself into one, and then the other, and then the other.
I was at Stamford Bridge on Sunday, which I probably should briefly mention. Man City weren't very impressive.
You did mention it earlier, to be fair.
Yeah, but I should maybe expand on it slightly, because Man City weren't that impressive for the first half, but they did have gears to go to. Collectively, individually, I think there are players that are rising to the occasion, that are thriving under pressure right now. I think Bernardo Silva, having had a really difficult start to the season, playing very well. Someone like Cherky as well.
Cherky's looking great.
Cherky's looking brilliant.
Although the guy that scores all their goals, Nico O'Reilly, he hurt his hamstring.
Yeah, that's true. Even Mateus Nunes at right back was just kind of bullying Pedro Neto. I think Kusanov has had an excellent season quietly. There are players that are playing very, very well right now, and they are compensating for the fact that one of the best strikers of their generation in Erling Haaland is not really still scoring at the sort of rate that we expect from him. So that is a worry. I don't know whether Man City can reel off whatever it will take, 6 wins, 5 wins, probably 5 from 6 maybe to win the league. So I still back Arsenal just about, but they have to get a draw at the Etihad. Hopefully a win, but...
It is amazing, isn't it? I just when you said that, I thought, haven't they just won like 5 of the last 6? They haven't. They've won 3 in a row. Only one of which was in the Premier League. It's the same situation where like the cup is creating a cloud over Arsenal. It's doing the exact opposite for Man City, and yet it feels like on one level almost none of it is relevant because almost none of it took place in the Premier League. But we're extrapolating that and adding it to the run and. Lots of questions. Is this the fabled City run? Like Arsenal fans will be fearing that it is. But, you know, right now, they are on a 1-game win streak in the league. It wasn't that long ago that they drew to Nottingham Forest and West Ham. Those were the last 2 fixtures before their latest win. It's amazing, isn't
Chelsea
it?
also imploding. I think it's worth pointing out. In recent weeks, they've beat Port Vale, but aside from that, they lost 3-0 to Everton, 3-0 to PSG, 5-2 to PSG. They lost against Newcastle as well. This is not a side in a particularly good moment individually or collectively.
I mean, come on. I mean, they went into a game against Man City and they've had to self-suspend key player Enzo Fernandez because he 3 times on international duty talked about how he would quite like to join Real Madrid. It was so serious they had to suspend him internally for 2 games. I mean, that is not a team that is going to be beating City if they're remotely good.
I agree that the circumstances of it, but by the end of that game, Man City fans were doing olays at 65 minutes, 70 minutes. Like the gap in quality was stark, and Chelsea kind of threw the towel in.
Oh, big time. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. It's not a marker. It's not necessarily a marker for much. At all. We'll have to see. Look, I'm sticking with Arsenal as well.
Okay.
Mostly because, as I've already explained to you multiple times, fixture lists aren't real. Yeah, we've already had that conversation. Yeah. You don't agree with me, but I'm telling you, fixture lists don't mean anything. They're not real. It doesn't matter what could happen or what might happen, right? We just watched Leeds beat Man United at Old Trafford on Monday night. For example, they're not supposed to win that game. Nothing happens as intended.
Are Man United as good as everyone thinks, though?
Next week's podcast. Is Carrick the truth? No, probably not. Probably but my point is, it's feeling, football's always been random, that's why we love it. It's feeling so random right now that what I'll take over anything else is 6 points as a lead in the bag, right? And everyone's looking at that Man City game and thinking City will win and they'll close the gap. Of course, it's a chance for Arsenal to pull the reverse Uno card out. So I'll take the points in the bag over games in hand and prospective runs every time, especially in the most random of random seasons. But I'm sure others are starting to waver. That said, can we get some goals, please, Arsenal?
Yeah, that would be brilliant. And also playing in midweek before a game on Sunday when City don't have a game midweek. It's not ideal.
It's fine. Rustiness. City will be rusty. God, on that note, did you see some of the Premier League teams coming back from the 3-week break?
I thought it was going to completely screw us over, yeah.
Were you not rusty?
Well, we were quite rusty, but we were playing Spurs, so...
Some of the teams that they hadn't kicked a ball before.
Hello, Man United.
Villa had...
Hello, Fulham. Jack's waving.
Yeah. So Villa had the benefit. I thought it was going to be a negative, but it was the benefit of a game against Bologna. Because for 45 minutes, Villa actually were battered by Bologna because Villa had them also forgotten how to kick a ball. It'd been so long.
Can we have Sam Ty thoughts quickly on Jonathan Rowe?
Should have signed him last summer.
That's what every Villa fan was saying.
He absolutely ripped Matty Cash to shreds.
He looks like such a player. Only for the last 6-7 weeks or so, but he's been unbelievable.
He looks like the player Leon Bailey dreams of being,
yeah,
except right-footed and playing on the other flank. But apart from that, the player Leon Bailey dreams of being.
Yeah. One of the few... Well, no, I've interviewed a few footballers in the last few years, but I did interview him with Football Daily with Mikey McCubbin as well, and he was extremely confident about his own ability. Nice guy, but really, really confident guy. And what an interesting career path to go to Marseille, then have to leave for fighting with your teammate, and then end up at Bologna. Beautiful city. I was on his Wikipedia... This is not the topic, but whatever. I was on his Wikipedia page on Thursday night because he just torn Villa a new one. And I was familiar with his path, right? Norwich into Marseille, had a fight with Adrien Rabiot, got kicked out, joined Bologna the next day. All that stuff is interesting. The most interesting thing is he was born in Westminster. Really?
Who the hell is born in Westminster and then makes it in football?
Is Dan a politician or something?
Don't know. I don't know. You know, I did that detective work on Esri Concer's potential graffiti.
Yes.
My next one is Johnny
Why
Rowe.
was Johnny Rowe
born in Westminster?
Yeah. This is the official buttering up before summer 2026.
Yeah, for
Find out all his backstory. Been great for England under 21s as well. Anyway, this has really turned into a Johnny Rowe podcast.
Let's finish the podcast. Right, Arsenal look anaemic in attack.
Yeah.
They need to buck up.
Couple of bad performances.
All is not lost.
I still think they do it. I'm nailing my colours to the mast. Arsenal fans, relax. You'll get there.
Draw at the Etihad. See it out. See what happens.
Perfect.
Well, we'll see. I must admit, I don't enjoy the anti-Arsenal banter, and I don't really have a horse in the race, but I kind of am pulling for them. So, and also we picked them, didn't we, at the start of the season? Do you remember we picked Zubimendi as like the pivotal signing that would decide the league? Not for the wrong reasons, Dougie.
To be totally honest, I picked them after about 3-4 weeks. I did actually have Liverpool before a ball was kicked, which has not aged well.
Why do we do this? Right, let's call it a day. It's time for us to go and watch the Champions League.
Let's do it.
Fantastic. Dougie, thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Jack, thank you. Thank you, Sam. You're the best host ever. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you same time next week.